Picture this. A tiny Boston-based shoe company inspired by chicken's feet, once mocked as the dad shoe brand, is now taking on giants like Nike and Adidas, and winning. How did New Balance go from suburban lawnmowers to high-fashion runways? Let's dive into the untold story of one of the most fascinating comebacks in sneaker history. This is the image that inspired the infamous Jumpman logo. But here's the twist. Michael Jordan isn't wearing Nike in this picture, he's rocking New Balance. Just a few months later though, MJ signed with Nike, and the rest, as they say, is history. Together, they built the most dominant athlete brand ever. Today, Jordan brand reigns supreme as Nike's crown jewel, raking in over $7 billion a year. But what about New Balance? While Nike and Adidas turned athletes into global icons, New Balance took a completely different path. Their slogan? Endorsed by no one. And for decades, it felt like they were almost bought by no one too. They became the go-to shoe for dads who cared more about arch support than sneaker drops. Shoes made for running but often worn by chubby white guys in their late 30s to early 40s, pushing lawnmowers or walking their golden retrievers. Fast forward to today, and something incredible has happened. New Balance is now the fastest-growing sneaker brand in the game. From suburban essentials to high-fashion must-haves, from endorsed by no one to signing world-class athletes, they're even cracking football, soccer. So how did this transformation happen? It wasn't luck. It was a playbook unlike any other in the sneaker industry. Let's rewind to where it all began, in 1906 with chickens. Yes, chickens. William J. Riley, a British immigrant living in Boston, wanted to design shoes that actually fit well. His inspiration? Chickens roaming his backyard. He noticed how their three-pronged feet gave them perfect balance. That observation led him to create an arch support system with 3 contact points, just like a chicken's foot. And just like that, New Balance got its name. But Riley wasn't selling sneakers at first. His company made custom arch supports, and they weren't cheap. $5 a pair back then, which would be nearly $90 today when adjusted for inflation. His first customers? Policemen and firefighters. People who spent all day on their feet and needed comfort above everything else. It wasn't until the 1930s that New Balance made its first actual sneaker, and even then, these weren't mass-produced. These were custom-made shoes for runners and athletes focused on functionality rather than fashion. Fast forward to 1960, and New Balance released the Trackster, the world's first running shoe available in multiple widths. A game changer. With its wavy, grippy sole, it quickly became a favorite among runners. When Jim Davis bought the company in 1972 on the day of the Boston Marathon, New Balance was still tiny, just 6 employees making fewer than 30 shoes per day. But Davis had a vision quality over quantity. No flashy ads, no big-name endorsements, just really well-made shoes. This philosophy led to some bold decisions like releasing a model in 1982 with a jaw-dropping price tag of $100, which is over $300 today. It was a statement. If you want the best running shoe, you pay for it. And it worked. Sort of. New Balance built a loyal following, not through hype, but through function. They weren't cool, but they were trusted. However, sticking to function over fashion came at a cost. By the late 80s and 90s, while Nike and Adidas became cultural icons, New Balance earned a very different reputation, not with sneakerheads, not with basketball fans, but with dads. The most famous New Balance dad of all time, Steve Jobs. For over a decade, the Apple co-founder walked onto stages to introduce groundbreaking innovations, and on his feet were always the same shoes. Jobs wasn't a fashion icon, but he was the face of innovation. His uniform, a black turtleneck, jeans, and New Balance sneakers, became the tech world's equivalent of a suit and tie. Some even claim Jobs helped design the 992 model. Whether true or not, his obsession with simplicity, functionality, and quality made New Balance a natural fit. For decades, being associated with dad shoes wasn't exactly cool, until something changed. You can see it clearly on Google Trends. Searches for dad shoes skyrocketed in 2018. What happened? In 2017, Balenciaga dropped the Triple S, a chunky oversized sneaker that looked straight out of a thrift store. Bulky, exaggerated, and priced at $1,000, it somehow became the must-have sneaker of the year. Suddenly, sneaker culture, which had spent years obsessing over sleek, performance-driven designs, was embracing something new, big, comfortable, and kind of ugly cool sneakers. And guess what? New Balance had been making those for decades. Unlike Balenciaga, they didn't need to invent a trend, they already had the shoes that fit perfectly into this new aesthetic. Why did Gen Z, a generation obsessed with fashion, embrace sneakers their parents wore? A few key things were happening. First, there was a resurgence of 90s nostalgia. Retro aesthetics were back, along with a love for vintage sneakers. Second, the sneaker resale market had made traditional hyped shoes like Jordans, Yeezys, and Off-Whites nearly impossible to buy at retail prices. People started looking for alternatives that were stylish but accessible. Comfort won. The rise of athleisure, remote work, and everyday casual wear meant stiff, narrow sneakers were out. Chunky, well-cushioned shoes were in. New Balance didn't just benefit from this shift, they owned it. By staying true to their DNA, quality, comfort, and timeless aesthetics, they turned their once-ignored sneakers into fashion statements. But this wasn't luck. New Balance engineered their comeback. At the center of this transformation was Chris Davis, son of owner Jim Davis. Chris didn't get a free ride to the top. He started at New Balance in 2008 and worked his way up, officially joining the leadership team in 2016. By 2020, he was named Chief Marketing Officer, and he had a plan that would change the company forever. For years, New Balance relied on direct response advertising, short-term sales tactics like banner ads and discount-driven campaigns. This worked for selling shoes but didn't build a brand. Nike and Adidas weren't winning because they had better sneakers, they were winning because they built cultural influence. Davis knew New Balance needed a brand-first strategy. He flipped the marketing playbook and introduced a 50-30-20 formula, 50% on proven tactics. The foundation, like keeping strong retail partnerships. 30% on calculated risks. Ideas that worked in other industries but weren't mainstream in sneakers yet, like expanding into gaming and esports. And 20% on experimental projects. High-risk, high-reward moves like opening a pub in London where runners could trade Strava miles for beer. This approach led to a huge success in brand engagement. Marketing wasn't the only play. Davis knew that to build cultural relevance, New Balance needed credibility. Enter collaborations, hand-picked ones like with Aimé Leon Dore. Teddy Santis, the founder of ALD, brought a retro, understated aesthetic that aligned perfectly with New Balance's heritage. Suddenly, New Balance wasn't just a sneaker brand, it was a brand people wanted to associate with. Every collab reinforced the idea that New Balance wasn't following trends, it was building its own lane. Revenue skyrocketed. To truly compete with Nike and Adidas, lifestyle collabs weren't enough. If New Balance wanted to cement its position, there was only one place left to conquer: sports. Athletes are at the heart of every serious performance-driven sports brand.
Breaking news.
New Balance's approach? The inch-wide, mile-deep strategy. Instead of signing hundreds of athletes, they partnered selectively with transformative figures who fit the brand's DNA. In 2019, they signed Kawhi Leonard, one of the NBA's most dominant and enigmatic superstars. Unlike flashy media-driven stars like LeBron or Steph Curry, Kawhi's quiet, no-nonsense attitude mirrored New Balance's ethos. That same year, Kawhi led the Toronto Raptors to their first-ever NBA championship and won Finals MVP. Just like that, New Balance wasn't just in the basketball world, they were winning titles. Football, soccer, proved harder to crack. After losing Liverpool FC to Nike, New Balance shifted focus to individual players like Bukayo Saka, Timothy Weah, and Jadon Sancho. Using data-driven insights, they innovated products tailored to each athlete's unique style. For instance, the Furon V8 boot was designed using Bukayo Saka's in-game data, helping players accelerate past defenders with precision. Nike and Adidas may still dominate in terms of sheer market share, but the trajectory is clear. Through strategic marketing, authentic collaborations, and innovative product development, New Balance has found its groove. From chicken feet to dad shoes to high-fashion runways, this underdog brand has rewritten the rules of the sneaker game. So next time you lace up your New Balances, remember, you're not just wearing a shoe. You're stepping into a legacy of resilience, reinvention, and rebellion against the status quo. Stay tuned, because this battle of the brands is far from over.